Former President Donald Trump took to X Spaces last night to praise the work of the U.S. Secret Service and law enforcement for their response to the apparent assassination attempt against him. He also described what happened in those moments on the Trump International Golf Course in West Palm Beach.
All of a sudden, we heard shots being fired in the air, and I guess probably 4 or 5. And it sounded like bullets, but what do I know about that? But Secret Service knew immediately it was bullets. And they grabbed me, and I think probably the other one, Steve, is one of the people, Steve Witkoff, a great friend of mine.
The former president spoke with the acting head of the U.S. Secret Service and President Biden on Monday. In a statement, Trump said his call with Biden was, quote, very nice and focused on Secret Service protection. Earlier yesterday, Biden told reporters he feels like Secret Service needs more help and called on Congress to respond to the agency's needs. As this investigation continues, there are a number of security concerns surrounding the incident. CBS News has learned the Secret Service did not sweep the full golf course ahead of Trump's visit because the golf outing was unscheduled, and that investigators believe he may have been there all night based on the location of his cell phone. We've also learned and have been reporting that the suspect had a criminal background. The Associated Press reports he self-published a book that shared his disdain with the former president and included a message to Iran that read, quote, "You are free to assassinate Trump." CBS News national correspondent Manuel Bojorquez has more. Manny, give us the latest on the investigation.
It's interesting you mentioned that self-published book. This is new reporting from my colleagues at CBS News. It was called Ukraine's Unwinnable War, published last year. And as you mentioned there, he basically says that he's giving Iran permission to assassinate the former president. Some really chilling details that we found in the criminal complaint against Ralph that was filed yesterday, as you alluded to. The fact that according to cell phone records, and this is according to prosecutors, that he was in the area about 2 a.m. on Saturday, and he wasn't discovered until 1:30 p.m. when the Secret Service saw him and fired at him, and they claimed that he got in his car and fled. So that's roughly 12 hours. So there are questions about how someone could have been undetected for that long. Lindsay?
Let's dig a little deeper into the suspect, Ryan Ralph. What sort of information are officials digging up on him?
Well, we do know that they have reached out to family and friends. He has lived in North Carolina. He cited in court yesterday, as we were there watching, that he lived in Hawaii, didn't really have possessions there. He says he has 2 trucks, but 0 funds, so he was given a public defender. He said he works, but makes about $3,000 a month. The felony charge goes back to North Carolina. This is in the early 2000s for possessing a weapon of mass destruction. That should have precluded him from ever again obtaining or being in possession of a firearm. So, of course, there are questions now about how he obtained the rifle that prosecutors allege he had on him with a scope just outside of the golf club there in West Palm Beach.
Manny, what's next in the investigation?
Well, they're continuing to build the case against him. It's interesting that the only 2 charges that have been filed so far are related to possessing a gun as a convicted felon. We didn't hear anything yet in court about an attempted assassination attempt, I should say, anything about the former president, anything about the golf club. So our understanding is that these 2 charges are really just a starting point for prosecutors. And as they continue to build their case, they will issue what's called a superseding indictment, and that could carry potentially more serious charges against Ralph. We do know that he has a bond hearing set for next Monday and a probable cause hearing set for the following Monday. So these are just the very early initial steps in what will probably be a very long trial against him.
Manny Bojorquez, thank you. Today, Trump is back on the campaign trail for the first time since that apparent assassination attempt Sunday. He'll participate in a town hall in Flint, Michigan, which tends to be a more liberal-leaning part of the battleground state. CBS News political director Fin Gómez is following the Trump campaign for us from Washington. Fin, good to see you. So Trump and his running mate, Senator Vance, have been blaming Democrats' rhetoric for this attempt. I want to go ahead and play a clip.
But I do think that we should take this opportunity to call for a reduction in the ridiculous and inflammatory political rhetoric coming from too many corners of our politics. Look, we can disagree with one another, we can debate one another, but we cannot tell the American people that one candidate is a fascist, and if he's elected, it is going to be the end of American democracy.
Trump has accused Harris of being a Marxist and says we won't have a country anymore if she's elected president. What can you tell us about Trump's response to this apparent assassination attempt and why he and Vance are so quick to blame rhetoric from the Democratic side?
Yeah, Lindsay, after that second apparent attempted assassination attempt on Sunday, we are seeing the argument is essentially over who's to blame for this. And it's being vesseled through political rhetoric that you're hearing, especially from the Trump-Vance side. And they immediately, started, as opposed to Butler, if you recall that, Lindsay, there was this hesitation, this period before, it was really more of a, there wasn't a lot of finger pointing from Trump towards the Biden and Harris campaign at that point. But now you're seeing a different style. You're seeing him immediately blame the rhetoric coming from Vice President Harris. As you said, he said essentially that the rhetoric which is causing me to be shot at. He said this on a Fox News digital interview on Monday, and you heard the same from J.D. Vance in that same speech that you played earlier. He also wondered why someone like Trump had been shot at, or these two attempts had happened towards Trump but not to Harris, and he blamed directly the rhetoric coming from the left. Now, if you compare the two right now, just in terms of like the volume, speaking to both the Democrats and Republicans, Lindsay, there was a lot of attention, more so to the rhetoric that you're hearing from the Trump and Vance campaign when it comes to inflammatory type of rhetoric. And so to juxtapose these two styles, you're seeing that perhaps there's more of a concentration, there's more of that coming from the Trump-Vance side than it is from the Harris-Walz side.
Fin Gómez, thank you.
Thank you.